Joining me now is Governor JB Pritzker, Democrat from Illinois. Governor, thank you so much for joining us. I'd be remiss if I didn't point out that I am from Chicago, born and raised, but I will not press you on whether the Bears are going to stay in the great state of Illinois. I do want to begin with the breaking news, though, that a grand jury has indicted former FBI Director James Comey. You yourself, Governor, have been a frequent target of the president. So what's your level of concern at this point about a potential federal prosecution?
Well, the president has, in fact, threatened to jail me, not for any particular reason, just announced that he thinks I ought to be jailed. So, you know, he goes after his political enemies. That's what he's doing here with James Comey. That's what he tried to do with Tish James. He is, in fact, weaponizing the Department of Justice against his political enemies. It's not right. They've gone and gotten this indictment. You know, any good prosecutor can get a grand jury to indict a ham sandwich, frankly. And they've done exactly that. Now they're going to have him go through. It's a whole bunch of lawfare against James Comey that's going to end with what? A picture of some seashells that say 8647. And they're going to make the case that James Comey wanted to kill the president of the United States because he tweeted this picture, 8647. It's just wrong. I mean, we all need to recognize this president. There's something wrong with him. He's getting his DOJ to go after people that he shouldn't. We've all got to stand up and speak out about this.
One issue that your party has been grappling with is just how much to focus on fighting the Trump administration versus focusing on the kitchen table issues that many think will win them the midterms. Do circumstances like this, though, distract from the affordability message? And perhaps is that what the president wants here?
You can do two things at once. We can stand up for people's affordability, people's ability to pay their bills, rent a home or buy a home, pay their electric bill. We can deal with that. In fact, we do that in the state of Illinois. We've raised wages here and we've lowered costs for people and lowered taxes for working families. But at the same time, we can't let them take our rights away. We can't let Donald Trump go after people, take away their due process rights, go after them because they're black or brown. These are all things that this administration is doing. And it's okay to speak up and speak out about this. We're Americans. We're for democracy. And frankly, they're taking that away every day. He's an authoritarian. And if we are not pushing back every single day, then we're doing it wrong because they're taking our rights away every single day.
Governor, what are you doing to push back against that type of rhetoric?
Well, I appreciate your asking. As you know, the ICE and CBP agents invaded the city of Chicago last fall, and they were tackling black and brown people, U.S. citizens, legal residents, people that spoke with an accent, and they were detaining them without any due process. They weren't going after the worst of the worst. And so I asked the people of Illinois to pull out their phones, take video of what was happening, and make sure that we're keeping a record of that. And then we took them to court. We also created an accountability commission that is holding its sixth and final hearing today. And they're going to be issuing a report on it. And our intention is to hold accountable the people who've committed these crimes or breached their obligations as law enforcement agents, and whether we can hold them responsible today or when there is a new Congress or a new president, that's what we're trying to do. It may take us a couple of years, in fact, to go after people like Kash Patel, like Kristi Noem, like Tom Homan, like Greg Bovino, but we are coming after them.
Well, you mentioned this commission. It doesn't actually have any specific law enforcement authority. So when you say hold people accountable, what are you hoping that actually looks like?
We're gathering evidence. This is about creating a record so that when the time comes, we can take them to court. That is what I'm talking about. These folks are going to be held accountable by the law, by the Constitution, but not by this president, apparently, and not by his Secretary of the Department of Homeland Security, but instead by the courts. And we will do it with prosecutors and leaders of the country who understand that you have to follow the law.
I do want to get to the fallout from Saturday's assassination attempt at the White House Correspondents' Dinner. There's a lot of finger pointing going on in the immediate aftermath. You've pointed out that the president also has used inflammatory rhetoric about his opponents. You yourself has used some charged language as well. Do you think it's possible in this political climate for either side to take the high road?
Well, there's a difference between what I'm doing and what the president is doing. I'm calling for peaceful protest. I'm calling for people to speak out. That is our obligation as Americans. And by the way, it's protected by the First Amendment. The president, on the other hand, is literally using the Department of Justice to take people to prison. He is indicting people and prosecuting people for no reason other than they are his opponents. So there's a big difference between what each side is doing here. Here's what I would say about what happened at the White House Correspondents' Dinner. All of us need to be very careful about how we speak, that on both sides, the Democratic side, the Republican side, people need to be careful. We can talk about our disagreements. We can disagree vehemently and peacefully. But what we shouldn't do and what we can't do is call for violence. And that's something, unfortunately, we've heard, frankly, from people in the administration. We've heard from people on the Republican side and some Democrats, too. But you've seen that the violence isn't just against Republicans. It's against Democrats and Republicans. And we need to prevent that by bringing the rhetoric down. Again, we've got to disagree vehemently, but we don't need to disagree by calling for violence. The president sometimes calls for his supporters at his rallies to, punch or take out a protester. He's called for the death penalty for Mark Milley, a general of the Joint Chiefs of Staff. These are things that shouldn't happen. We all need to bring the rhetoric down. I hope the president will learn the lesson that I think the rest of the country has already learned.
The other thing I want to ask you about is the conspiracy theories that were quickly spreading after the assassination attempt, people saying it was a staged attack. Given the current social media climate, do you think leaders like yourself need to be more proactive about correcting misinformation? And are Democrats doing enough to snuff out some of these conspiracy theories?
It's social media companies that ought to be making sure that we're snuffing out some of this rhetoric, because they are doing nothing. They're literally letting hate speech happen on their platforms. That shouldn't be. We should be very careful about what people are, allowed to post. I really believe that hate speech has proliferated because of the failure of organizations, of companies like X, to do something about what gets posted. Meanwhile, yes, of course, it's our responsibility as elected officials to say the right things, to push back when people are trying to talk about violence or hate online. But there's only so much you can do. You can see how many posts there are in any given minute online. So all we can do is police our own rhetoric, what it is that we post online. And I would hope the president would do the same. Unfortunately, he doesn't seem capable of that.
Governor, thank you so much for being with us. And of course, go Bears.
ILL-INI.
Same.
We thank you for watching. And remember, stay updated on breaking news and top stories on the NBC News app or watch live on our YouTube channel.